Hello students, welcome to the third lecture on the lecture series on averages. Okay, so previously what we were doing was we were doing some exercise problems. So we'll continue to do so in this lecture also. Okay, so let's go forward with this lecture. So this is the third lecture on this lecture series and we will be covering exercise problems. Okay, so let's go forward and see what problem number 1 brings to the table. So a car travels a distance of 150 kilometer. Okay, so distance traveled is equal to traveled is equal to 150 kilometer, right? So the speed is given to us at 50 kilometer per hour. So speed is equal to 50 kilometer per hour, right? So what you have to consider at this time is here the distance is also given in kilometer and the speed is also given in kilometer. If not, say if it would have been given to you that the distance traveled by the car was 150,000 meter, okay, and the speed of the car is 50 kilometer per hour, then in order to find out the time taken, okay, if you want to find the time, then you must convert one into the other. Since we are using r in speed and kilometer in speed, so the distance must be in kilometer. Okay, so the distance in kilometer will be what? 150 kilometer, right? So time is equal to what? Distance by speed. You say how? Because speed is equal to distance dividing time, right? So this is equal to what? This implies that this time is equal to distance by speed. So 150 by 50 is equal to 3 hours. So it will take 3 hours for the car to travel a distance of 150 kilometer at a speed of 50 kilometer per hour speed. Okay. So let's see the step-by-step solution. So using the formula, time is equal to speed distance by speed, because speed is equal to distance by time, right? So time is equal to 150 by 50 is equal to 3 hours. Okay. So time taken is only 3 hours. So let's see problem number 2. So a train covers a distance of 400 kilometer in 5 hours. Okay. So if the train covers a distance of 400 kilometer in 5 hours, then calculate its speed. Again, we can use that same formula. Okay. So speed is equal to what? Distance by time. Okay. So this is equal to distance by time. So distance is 400 kilometer given to us. This is 400 kilometer by 5 hours. So 5 hours is equal to nothing but 80. So this will be in kilometer per hour. Okay. So the speed of the train is 80 kilometer per hour. So let's see problem number 2. So a train covers a distance of 400 kilometer in 5 hours. Okay. So using the formula, speed is equal to what? Distance by time. So 400 by 5 hours is equal to 80 kilometer per hour. So the speed of the train will be 80 kilometer per hour, right? So let's go forward with problem number 3. So two cyclists start from the same point and travel in opposite directions. Okay, so one cyclist travels at a speed of 25 kilometer per hour. Okay, so the cyclist travels at a speed of 25 kilometer per hour and the other travels at 50 kilometer per hour speed. Okay, so if they start at 8 a.m. okay, if they start at morning 8 a.m. then what will be the time? They will be 200 kilometer apart. Okay, if they are 200 kilometer apart, then what will be the time if they started at 8 a.m. in the morning? So let's go forward with the step-by-step solution. So calculate the relative speed of the two cyclists. So after calculating, what you can assume? Okay, so what will make using relative speed concept the problem easier here? Okay, because after calculating the relative speed, what you can assume is one is stable at a point and the other person is actually moving at that relative speed that you have calculated. So the calculation became very easy to you. Okay, so relative speed will be what? Speed of the cyclist 1 plus speed of the cyclist 2. So that is 25 plus 15 is equal to 40 kilometer hour. Okay, just 40 kilometer per hour will be the relative speed. So now what you can assume is one person is just standing right here, okay, here, and the other person is moving. Okay, you can assume here. But in original case, what was the case? They started from here, okay? Then one started moving in left and the other started moving in right, okay? And we have to calculate the time. At this moment, it was 8 a.m., right? And they will be, if they will be 200 kilometer apart, then what will be the time, okay? Time. What it will be. But in this case, how we have modified it? We have modified it in this question. So one person is stable right here, and we have since calculated the relative speed. The other person is moving at that relative speed, that is 40 kilometer per hour. Okay. And in order to achieve the 200 kilometer mark, how much time will it take? Okay. So this problem will be solved by this formula. Speed is equal to what? Distance by time. So this implies that time is equal to distance by speed. So it will be equal to what? Distance will be 200 by 40. So this is equal to 5. So 5 power will take. So 8 a.m. plus 5 hour is equal to 1 p.m. right? So the time will be 1 p.m. So time is equal to distance by speed. So 200 kilometer by 40 kilometer per hour. So it will be taking 5 hours. So adding the time to the starting time to find the arrival time, it will be 8 a.m. plus 5 hour is equal to 1 p.m. Okay. So they will be 200 kilometer apart at 1 p.m. So a problem number 4. A car travels from city A to city B at a speed of 60 mile per hour and returns from city B to A at a speed of 75 mile per hour. Okay. So if the distance between the cities is 180 miles, what is the average speed of the entire round trip? Okay. So a car travels from city A to city B with speed this and returns from B to A with this. Okay. So if the distance between the cities is 180 kilometer, then what is the average speed? So average speed, so let's find out the time taken to travel from A to B. Okay. He's going from A to B. The time he takes is equal to what? Distance by speed, that is equal to 180 by 60. Since they are in miles per hour, so we can directly divide and get it in hours. That is the time we can get it in hours. So it takes 3 hours. Okay. So returning at 75, 180 by 75, right? That is equal to, so returning will take, so it will be 15 and this will be 36. So 5 and 12. So 12 by 5 hour, that is equal to 2.4 hours. Okay. So from B to A, it took 2.4 hours. Okay. So calculate the total distance for the round trip. So 180 miles plus 180 miles is equal to what? 360 miles, right? So calculate the total time for the round trip. So 3 hours plus 2.4 hours is equal to what? 5.4 hours. So calculate the average speed for the round trip. So 360 miles by 5.4 hours is equal to what? 66.67 miles per hour. So rounded to 2 decimal places. So the average speed of the entire round trip will be 66.67 miles per hour. So let's see problem number 5. So a cyclist rides at a speed of 20 km per hour for the first half journey. Okay. So let's say his whole journey was X kilometers, right? X kilometer. Okay. Then up to this, he rode at 20 km per hour. Okay. And then increases its speed to 30 km per hour for the second half. If the total distance traveled is 60 kilometers, this is given as 60 kilometers. Okay. Then what is the average speed of the entire journey? So the entire journey can be completed on an average speed of what? So calculating the distance for the first half of the journey is equal to 30 km and the second half will also be 30 km, right? So calculate the time taken for the first half is equal to 30 kilometers by 20 km per hour is equal to what? 1.5 kilometers. So calculate the distance for the second half of the journey. So 1 by 2 into 60 is equal to what? 30 kilometers. So let's calculate the time taken for the second half is equal to 30 km by 30 km per hour is equal to what? 1 hour. So calculate the total time for the entire journey will be 1.5 plus 1 is equal to 2.5 hours. So calculate the average speed for the entire journey. So 60 km by 2.5 hours is equal to 24 km per hour. So this will be the average speed at which if one completes the journey, then he will be covering 60 kilometers in 2.5 hours, with completing the first half with the speed of 20 km per hour and the second half in 30 km per hour. So let's go forward and see problem number 6. So in a class of 25 students, the marks scored in a test are as follows. That is 10 students scored 80 marks, so their cumulative will be 800. And 8 students scored 90 marks, so 8 into 90 is equal to 720. Okay, so the rest scored 70 marks. So plus 70 into x, right? So then let's see so x will be what? If there are 10 students and 8 students, so 25 minus 8 is equal to 7, right? So it will be what? Into 7, x will be 7. So this is divided by 25. So this is equal to 1520 plus 490 by 25 is equal to 2010 by 25, right? So calculating the total marks scored by each group is equal to 800, 720 for group number 1 and 2 respectively, whose average marks were 80 and 90 respectively, right? So total marks by group 3 is equal to 25 minus 10 minus 8 into 70 is equal to 490. So calculating the total marks and the average, the total marks is equal to 800 plus 720 plus 490 is equal to 2010. So average marks are total marks by total number of students, that is equal to 2010 by 25 is equal to 80.4. So the average marks are 80.4. So let's see problem number 7. So in a school, the average marks of class are 75. So if the average marks of boys are 80 and the average marks of girls are 70 and the ratio of boys to girls is 3:2. So find the percentage of the boys in the class. Okay, so let's go forward with the step-by-step solution. So set up the ratio equation for boys and girls. That will be what? 3:2, right? So calculating the ratio multiplier. So ratio multiplier is equal to what? Total parts by parts of boys is equal to 3 plus 2 by 3 is equal to 5 by 3. So calculating the average marks for the class. Okay. So average marks for boys is equal to a ratio multiplier into average marks of the boys, right? So average marks of the boys is what? 80. So ratio multiplier will be 5 by 3. We have already calculated here. So multiplying these two, 133.33 is the approximate value. So average marks for girls will be what? Ratio multiplier into average marks for girls. That will be 5 by 3 into 70 because their ratio multiplier is 5 by 3 and 70 is the average marks for girls. So it became 116.67. So step 4, calculating the total average marks for the class. So total average marks is equal to what? Average marks of boys plus average mark of girls by whole by 2. So it is 133.3 bar plus 116.67 whole by 2 is equal to 125. So calculating the percentage of boys in the class. Percentage of boys is equal to what? Average marks for boys minus total average marks. Average marks of boys minus total average marks of girls into 100. So it will be what? So this will be around 60%. Okay, so the percent of boys in the class is approximately 60%. So let's see problem number 8. So in an exam, 50% of the students scored 40 marks and the other 50% scored 60 marks. Okay. So what is the average score of the students? If 50% of the students scored 40 marks and 50% of the scored 60 marks. Okay, then let's calculate their average. So calculating total marks from 50 students will be what? Students scoring 50, if 50% of the scored 40 marks, then you calculate the total contribution to the marks pool. That will be 20 marks, right? So calculate the total marks from 50% of the students scoring 60. So similarly for them, it will be 30, that is 0.5 into 60. Okay, so then adding these two, okay, what we are left with is 50 marks. So 50 marks will be the average. Okay. So if we calculate what? 40 into 0.5. So 40 into 0.5 plus 60 into 0.5. Okay. This is equal to what? So this will be 20. Okay. And this will be 30 plus 30, right? Is equal to 50. So this will be the average marks that will be scored by the whole class. Okay. So the average score of the students will be 50 marks. So let's see problem number 9. So in a class of 40 students, the average score in mathematics exam is 75 and 10 students scored 90, 20 and 70, and the rest scored 60. So what is the average score of the entire class? Okay, the class has capacity of 40 students. Okay, so the average score in mathematics is 75. So 40 into 75 is the whole cumulative number or amount. Okay, so if 10 students scored 90, so 900, that is 10 into 90, plus 20 students scored 70, so it will be 1400, right? And the rest scored 60. So since we have what, 10 students and 20 students here, so rest is equal to 40 minus 10 minus 20 is equal to what, 10 are remaining, so they scored 60, so plus 600, right? So this is equal to 900 plus 1400 plus 600. Okay, so this is equal to what, 900 plus so this will be 2900. Okay, since the number of index or number of students is equal to 40 here, this is 40, this is equal to 290 by 4, that is equal to 145 by 2 is equal to 72.5. Okay, so 72.5 is the correct answer. Okay, this will be the class average. Okay, so as you can see, what we did first was we summed all the scores of 10 students scoring 90, that is equal to 900. Then we summed up all the students, that is 20 students whose score was 70, and we got 1400. And then we calculated the sum of scores of the remaining 10. Okay, remaining 10 how? 40 students are there in the capacity, with capacity 40 minus 20 minus 10 is equal to how many are left? Is equal to 10, right? So 10 students who scored 60 is equal to 600. So calculating the total sum of scores of the entire class is equal to 900. 1400 plus 600 is equal to 2900. So calculating the average score of the entire class is equal to what? 2900 by 40, right? So this will be 72.5. So the average score for the entire class is 72.5. So let's see problem number 10. So in a quiz competition, there are actually 50 questions, and the average number of questions answered correctly by a group of 30 participants is 40. So if one participant answered all 50 questions correctly, then what is the number of questions answered correctly by the remaining participants? Okay, so let's see. So calculating the total number of questions answered correctly by the group. So 30 participants into 40 questions whole by participant number is equal to 1200 questions. Okay, so subtract the number of questions answered by the participant who got all 50 correct. So this much minus 50 is equal to 1150, right? So calculating the average number of questions answered correctly by the remaining participants, that is what, 1150 questions remaining whole by 29 participants, it will be 39.66. So rounded to 2 decimal places. So the average number of questions answered correctly by the remaining participant is approximately 39.66 or 40. So let's see problem number 11. So Rohan's monthly income is 3000 and monthly expenditure is what, 2500. Let's see the step-by-step solution. So calculate the monthly savings. So monthly savings is equal to what, income minus expenditure. So it is 3000 minus 2500 is equal to 500. So Rohan's monthly savings are actually 500. Okay. So problem number 12. If Nisha's monthly income is 5000, she spends 30% of the income on rent and 20% on groceries. How much does she have left after her expenses? So calculate the amount spent on the rent and groceries. So remaining amount is equal to what? Income minus rent expense plus grocery expense is equal to 5000 minus 2500 is equal to what? 500, right? So remaining amount is 500 only. Okay. So Nisha has, okay, this is 2500, right? 2500 remaining. Okay. Her monthly income is what? 50,000 and 50% is spent on expenditure, monthly expenditure. So the remaining amount will be 2500 after all her expenses. So let's see problem number 13. So a family's annual income is 75,000. Okay. They spend 20% of their income on housing, 15% on education, 10% on healthcare, and the rest on other expenses. So calculate their annual savings. So let's go forward with the step-by-step solution. So calculating the amount spent on housing, education, and healthcare. So for housing expense, it is 25% of our whole income, so it will be 15,000. And for education expense, it is 15%, so it is 0.15 into 75,000 is equal to 11,250. So healthcare expense is equal to 10%. So it will be 10% of 75,000 is equal to 7,500, right? So step 2. So calculating the total expenses. So total expenses is equal to what? Housing plus education plus healthcare is equal to 15,000 plus 11,250. 7,500 is equal to 33,750. So calculating the annual savings is equal to what? Income minus total expense. 75,000 minus 33,750 is equal to 41,250. So the family's annual savings are 41,250. So let's see problem number 14. A family's monthly income is actually 4,000 and their monthly expenditure is 3,200. So if they increase their monthly income to 4,500, what will be the new average monthly savings? So let's see with the step-by-step solution. So calculating the initial monthly savings will be what? Income minus expenditure, that becomes 800 here in this case. So calculating the new monthly savings after increasing the income to 4,500, right? So 4,500 income minus that was amount of expenditure is equal to 1,300. So calculating the new average monthly savings. So 800 initial savings plus 1,300 new savings whole by 2 months, because we have assumed this is as the first month, this is the second month. So 2,100 by 2 is equal to 1,050. So the average monthly savings is 1,050. So let's see problem number 15. A company's monthly revenue is actually 50,000 and its monthly expenses are 40,000. If they reduce their monthly expenses to 35,000, what will be the new average monthly profit? Okay. So calculate the initial monthly profit is equal to 50,000 minus 40,000 is equal to 10,000. So calculate the new monthly profit after reducing expenses to 35,000. So 5,000 revenue minus 50,000 revenue minus 35,000 expenses. That is equal to 15,000. Okay, remaining savings. So calculating the new average monthly profit will be 10,000 plus 15,000 whole by 2 months, because this is the first month and this is the second month. Okay, so we'll assume 2 months in the denominator. So what will be left is 25,000 by 2, that is equal to 12,500. So the new average monthly profit is 12,500. So let's see problem number 16. So in a class of 30 students, so the capacity of the class is 30 students. So the average mark in a test was 75. So what will be the cumulative score? So cumulative score will be 75 into 30, right? So if Hari scores 80 marks, how much above the average did he scored? Okay, so let's calculate the difference between Hari's score and average, right? So Hari's score was how much? It was 80. So the average score was 75 for the whole class. So the difference is actually 5 marks. So Hari scored actually 5 marks above the average. So let's see problem number 17. In a school, the average marks of a class is what? 65. If the capacity of the class is 40 students. Okay, if it is the capacity of the class. So if a student named Mary scored 90 marks, how much above or below the average did she score? So Mary's mark was what? 90 marks and the class average was 65. Okay, so 90 minus 65 is equal to 25. So 25 she scored above the average. So difference between Mary's score and average score was 25. That's why Mary scored 25 marks above the average. So let's see problem number 18. So in an exam, the average score of a group of 50 students is 80. If the average score of first 30 students is 85 and the average score of the remaining students is 70. So what is the average score of the remaining students with respect to the entire group? Okay, since 50 students scored 80, the average of 50 students is equal to 80. So the cumulative score is equal to 50 into 80, right? And we know that out of those 50, 30 students have an average of 85. Okay, so we can calculate cumulative score of first 30 students is equal to what? 85 into 30, right? And for the remaining students, the average was 70. So how much was remaining? So cumulative score for the remaining 20 students is equal to 70 into 20, right? So what is the average score of the remaining students with respect to the entire group? Okay, so since the total marks of the remaining is equal to what? Average of the remaining into number of remaining, that is equal to 70 into 50 minus 30 is equal to 20, that is equal to 1400. Okay, and we have also calculated the total marks of the first 30, that is equal to what? 85 into 30 is equal to 2550. Okay, so what we can do now is we can calculate the total marks of all students is equal to 2550 plus 1400 is equal to 3950. Okay, so let's now calculate the average score of the remaining students with respect to the entire group. So if we try to calculate it, how we'll calculate it? We'll use this formula, that is total marks of the remaining by number of the remaining or indexes of the remaining, that is equal to what? 1400 by 20 is equal to 70. So the average of the remaining students with respect to the entire group is 35. Okay, so that's all for now. Thank you.